Hello, everyone. I'm Rory Feek. I've been here a time or two. I came last year to the fair. I've been coming here for a number of years. But let me start off this morning by telling you that I am a songwriter, not a speaker. I am way more comfortable sitting behind a guitar, singing songs than I am standing behind a podium, sharing a lecture. That being said, I am truly honored to be here to get to share a little bit of my story and how it has led me here to this place in this particular time, to tell you what this place means to me and my perspective, and what these people mean to me and why. Now, I personally find it very interesting that Waco, Texas is the home of Chip and Joanna Gaines and Fixer Upper, a TV series that takes old houses and fixes them up and turns them into something the families who own them never in a million years dreamed that they could be. The TV show and the Gaines have been so successful in the last 10 years, since the first season of Fixer Upper began airing in 2014, that it has led to them launching Magnolia, their own worldwide brand that's in Walmarts and stores all over the world, and their own TV network. I am told that hundreds of thousands of people come here from all over the world to visit, to try and get a glimpse of the Gaines and what they have created. But as impressive as that is not why I am here. I am here because a completely different phenomenon has taken place less than 10 miles away from there, right here at Homestead Heritage. In my opinion, these folks have done the even more impressive and extraordinary feat of not only restoring many homes to something that families that own them could have never imagined them being, but they have restored the families who live inside the homes. Yes, they are artisans and craftsmen who can take an old house or a barn and turn it into an absolutely stunning work of art, one that makes the neighborhood and community jealous with envy. But even more than that, what they do best is to take the broken down, dilapidated hearts and lives of people, men and women like you and me, mothers, fathers, and children, who have lost hope, and turn them into a beautiful, healthy, whole family again, or more often than not, for the very first time. In a modern cultural text, I'd like to think of it like this. If these folks here and their place had their own reality TV show like Fixer Upper, it would probably be something like Extreme Makeover Homestead Heritage Edition. Now, you've probably seen these shows on TV, some of you folks, where near the end of each episode, there is a bus parked in front of a house and everyone is excited to see the change that has happened to the place in the last couple of months. And then all at once, everybody begins chanting, "Move that bus, move that bus." And when the bus pulls out of the frame, they reveal a completely renovated home and the family who's standing in front of it goes crazy with excitement. Well, in the Homestead Heritage Edition, when they moved the bus, the same old house would still be standing there, probably not changed a bit. Oh, but the family standing in front of it, they have been completely transformed into something more beautiful than they or anyone else could have ever imagined. That is what this place is, in my mind. That is what these people are, and that is what they're doing, and that is why I'm here today. When we look around and we see all these families and the faces who live and work and worship here, I think that is what we're seeing. I know that's what we're seeing. Each family and person have experienced an extreme home makeover of sorts, a renovation and restoration of their hearts and their lives, and along with that, their homes. And although they don't have or want their own TV show to promote themselves in a similar way to what Chip and Joanna have done at the silos of Magnolia, hundreds of thousands of people travel here from all over the world to Homestead Heritage to come and see for themselves, to see the amazing things that God is doing in all these families' hearts and lives and in this community. And the fruit of that life that they are living is what we see here at the fair this weekend. Once a year, these families come together and share from the abundance of what this new life has brought them. From the crafts they make and the things they've grown to the music they sing and the way they live, they are not just showing us their handiwork, they are showing us His. It is God's glory that is on display here this weekend, not their own. Here at Homestead Heritage, they will be quick to tell you that it is not them, but God who does the real fixing up and the repairing of families and marriages and lives. Like an oasis in the middle of a desert, the people here and in some of the other smaller communities that have sprung up from here are choosing to live an intentional life, and in doing so, redefining what home and family is and can be for the rest of us. And that is truly why I'm here and how my story has intersected with theirs. Now, I have a beautiful farmhouse back in Tennessee that I have been restoring and living in for 25 years. But it was my life that was in desperate need of an extreme home makeover, the kind that Home Depot and Lowe's are not in the business of providing materials or solutions for. I had been very blessed to attain much of the fruit the world has to offer, and over the years, most of my musical hopes had come true. I had dreamed of being famous one day and making a lot of money, and I thought those things would bring me happiness. And they would lead to peace and joy, but they did not. They only led to more emptiness and less peace and less joy in my life. Now, the world will tell us that there are lots of ways that we can do and live life. It is your life, they say. Live it however you want. And so that is what we all do. We pursue the things that make us feel good and avoid the things that don't. But how is that working for us? When we look around today, what is the fruit of these choices? What is that looking like? The information and the ease that we have available to us at the push of a button is astonishing. It truly is. There has never been a generation or a people who have had more comfort or connection or money or food right at our fingertips or our thumbs, and yet statistics show that we are the most unhappy, unhealthy people that have ever lived. Anxiety is at an epidemic level. Young people are committing suicide at a scale we've never seen before. And with our computers and our smartphones, people are more connected and have more information available to us than we've ever had in the history of the world, and yet most of us have lost any real connection with others, and with that, we've also lost meaning and purpose in our lives. Millions and millions of people are living this way and waking up every day more disillusioned and disheartened than ever before. We have become a culture and a people who are extremely obese, but starving for nutrition. Connected to everyone and everything online, but desperately lonely for real relationships. Living in comfortable houses, but actually homeless, with no idea what a healthy family unit even looks like anymore. And in my own life, no matter how I chased my dreams or how full my touring schedule was or my bank account became, my heart remained empty. No matter how good life seemed like it was on the outside, I always found myself asking, what does any of this even matter? And I knew that the life I was living and the system that I and my family were part of was broken, but I could not see another alternative of how to truly live, at least not one in this century. Now, every day the world tells us that if we keep striving for new and more, it will fulfill this longing inside of us. But for me, it never did. But when I finally turned the plans for my life and my home and my family over to God and began seeking less of what the world was offering, and I truly got the opportunity to begin experiencing more of the abundant life that God had in store for me. Now, one of my favorite quotes is by a man named George Moore. He said, "A man searches the world over looking for what he needs, and he returns home to find it." And it's easy to see, I'm 59 years old, and it's easy for me to see that I have been on a journey home for a long, long time. But for me, it's not a place that I'm returning to. It's also not even necessarily a people that I'm trying to get back to that I was once part of. It is for me to a home that I have never been to before, I've never seen or never experienced. Now, I'm from Atchison, Kansas. My parents divorced very early on. My mother raised 5 kids. I'm the middle of 5 kids. My father worked for the railroad, and we only saw him from time to time. My mother just survived trying to make a living with us kids. And, like a lot of folks, we just spent a lot of time on welfare and living, from the projects to trailer parks to whatever, and moved around a lot. And by the time I got out of high school, we had lived in Kansas and Missouri and Iowa and Texas and Michigan and Kentucky and other places. And I graduated high school in Kentucky, went in the service, and I was in the Marines for 8 years. By the time I was 30 years old, I was already a divorced single father of 2 daughters, sadly repeating what my mom's life was like. My mother and father, neither of them really came from stable homes, and so I think it was very difficult for them to provide a true home for us when they didn't know what one looked like. I moved to Nashville. Now, my father was an aspiring singer. He worked on the railroad, but his passion was country music, and I grew up idolizing my father, probably because I didn't see him very often and because I admired him and I wanted to be like him. And so because he wanted to be a country music singer, that's what I wanted to do when I was a boy. And that's what the world said you should become. You should make your dreams come true. And so my father's dreams became my dreams. And I thought, I'm going to chase what he never got a chance to do. And I'm going to try and make those dreams come true. I moved to Nashville in 1995. And in a few years, I found success as a songwriter and had my first big hit song. And I remember that particular night in the winter of 1998, I had a big #1 song, which was kind of the pinnacle of all your dreams. For me, my dreams coming true. And it was not only like the greatest moment in my life, it was also the worst moment because it became very clear in that particular moment in that time that those things that I thought were going to make me happy were not making me happy. I felt more disillusioned and disheartened as that time came around. I felt even more empty. From there, I had been going to a Bible study. I'd actually been baptized a time or two. I'd been seeking. I used to live in Arlington when I got out of the service. I moved to Grand Prairie and then Arlington and then Irving, and I lived in Texas here for a while or up there and played music before I moved to Nashville. And I was always seeking God. And there were plenty of churches that I visited, and I came forward, I remember one time, and I knew I needed it. I knew it. I just didn't know what I needed and the things that they would share with me. I came forward and I gave my confession, and then I was in someone's backyard and I was in a swimming pool, and I got baptized, and nothing happened except, the next day I was expecting a lightning bolt. I was, the Holy Spirit to descend upon me and all that was missing to be fixed, and it didn't descend upon me. I actually felt worse because I thought I must have done something wrong because nothing had happened. But life kept going on, and I kept seeking. And so when I moved to Nashville, I joined a Bible study, and I kept seeking. And finally, maybe around 1999 or something, somewhere around after my dreams, most of my dreams had begun to come true and it left me empty, I ended up finally coming to a place where I wanted to give my heart, my life to Christ. And so I did. And it changed things. I got baptized again. And it really began to change things. I was always waiting for a brick to hit me, to come out of the sky and hit me, and I would be forever changed. This time, the experience was I felt like God had given me a brick and let me hit myself with it every day. And you know what? I started to see the fruit of that. I started to become a little bit of a different man. and make some different choices. And I saw some different fruit than I had ever experienced before. I think my family saw that. And I experienced some peace and some joy that I had not experienced before. And around that time, I bought an old farmhouse, which is really kind of silly for me because I didn't grow up on a farm. I'm from Kansas, but like I said, we kind of grew up more in trailer parks than farms. But something inside of me was calling for something more. And so by then I was a single father of two little girls. They were 11 and 13, I think by then. I bought a farmhouse an hour south of Nashville, and I began fixing up that farmhouse while God began working on me more. And some changes began to happen in my life, and one of them was I truly had longed for love for a long time, and I had not experienced it. And one of the main problems is that I was not who I needed to be. It wasn't that the people were wrong, I was wrong. And as God began to work on me, this woman, Joey, showed up in my life, and I ended up falling in love, getting married, and for the first time in my life, I committed to someone, really committed. And I knew it. I could tell, it was for real. And I thought, I wonder what will happen if I really, really commit to somebody. And I didn't even know her. I didn't really know her. It was like I'd been praying for God to send someone into my life, and she showed up, and she came to one of my shows, and she was in the audience, and not too long after the show, she said, "Hey, I was at your show, and God told me that I'm supposed to spend the rest of my life with you." And now, believe it or not, I don't get that very often. So I'd been praying for it, but I was hoping God would reveal it in my heart, but he revealed it in her heart. And it was so unusual, and she wasn't who I would have chosen, that I felt like I can't trust myself, I will trust him. And I asked God for a sign, and he didn't give me a sign. He gave me such a billboard that it was so clear that she was the one for me, whether I knew it or I understood it or not. And so I committed to her. And I went from being the least likely person to be part of a love story to literally, as I'm walking here just a little bit ago, I am overwhelmed by, I can't go down a grocery store. I can't go anywhere without people who are encouraged or inspired, mostly by the love story I'm part of. Somehow, God did such a big work in that he brought me from being the least likely person to be part of a love story, to being famous for it. I mean, it's incredible. And so Joey and I got married, and we began trying to build a home. We grew a garden. We started raising some chickens, and I began to realize, she already knew it. She was from Indiana, and she already knew that this is where we should get our food from. And I admired her for it because it didn't make any sense on paper to me. It's like we could just go to Kroger and pick it up. It'd be a lot easier and cheaper. But she knew God's economy. Yes. And she knew that this is way better. This is actually a really good deal. We're going to win so much in the long run. And so we began growing a garden and homesteading just a little bit at a time. And then through a series of events, that woman that God showed me, who was an aspiring singer but had no success, nothing going on. When we were married for 5 years, and she finally gave up her music career, or her dream of a music career, and opened a restaurant with my sister just down the road from us. That, of course, is the moment when God says, okay, I will give you your music career, when you don't need it, when you don't want it. Perhaps you're ready. So he not only gave her a music career, he let it happen, and he set me right beside her. And when I was 43 years old, something like that, she and we didn't even have a television. But through a series of events, someone talked us into going out and trying for a TV show like American Idol for country music. And I thought it was a disaster. It's not going to work out well. Well, we not only got on the show, we went all the way to the finals, and it changed our life in a whole new career. Besides my songwriting career, I got to be part of having a singing career. We went on and we won a number of awards and Grammys, and had a lot of just our other dreams come true. And I was again in awe of what God was doing. He'd not only given me a beautiful love story, he had given me a dream that I didn't even dare to dream, the way that it was unfolded. And that went on for a number of years. We were very blessed all through different things. And at some point, I remember Joey came to me when we'd been married about 10 years, and she said, when I knew that when I met Joey, I had two little girls, like I said, who were 11 and 13. And the one thing about Joey was she had a very strong faith, and she was a wonderful person and a wonderful wife, but she would not have a conversation about having a baby. She was terrified of having children. And so it was the only thing we would ever argue about. And so we didn't really talk about it. I was older and I had kids, but I knew that if we wanted to have an argument, I could just say, and I loved babies. So when she'd see me around babies, I'd just go crazy, and she'd say, And I knew it. But then one day when out of nowhere, this person comes to you and says, I've been thinking and praying, and I feel like after all that God has done for me and for us, I'm so blessed. We are so blessed. How can I withhold this from him any longer? And I was shocked because I knew what a mountain it was for her. Now, like I said, I was probably I was 47. So I was imagining no more children, and I was getting older. And all of a sudden, there was this new opportunity and this new thing that was in front of us. And so she gets pregnant, and through a series of events, she goes from being terrified to having a baby to we end up watching. I was trying to find something that I could show her on an iPad of kids that are cute to try and talk her into having a baby. And we came across this thing called The Business of Being Born, and I pushed play. And it turned out it was this documentary about childbirth, about home birth, and how it was meant to be. And 90 minutes later, we turned it off, and she said, I'm having a baby just like that in this farmhouse with no medicine, no doctors, just like they did 100 years ago. And she became empowered because she realized this is how it's meant to be. And what had terrified her went away. So that's what happened. We ended up having a baby at home with a midwife, and it was the greatest experience. First off, it was the greatest experience. I mean, I had two kids, but not like this. This was different. And then first off, God gives us a couple of double whammies. Number one, she has the baby, we hold it in our arms, and we find out that our little girl, Indiana, has Down syndrome, which we didn't have any doctor's appointments. So no one told us, not that we would have cared, but nobody told us. And so when we found that out, that was such a shock to us, not in a bad way, just we hadn't even thought about it. And of course, when set that baby in Joey's arms, she could care less. She's like, this is the baby God has given us. And in a moment, she went from the thing that terrified her most, when she put that baby in her arms, she said, I know what life is about. And in that moment, she was transformed. All the other hopes and dreams and ideas and stuff went away, and she knew this is what I was born for. And it was just and then she came to me, of course, and said, I think we should have 5 more. And again, I knew this was God. This was God. I saw it. I've seen it again and again and again in her life and in our life. And so she has a doctor's appointment. She goes in really just kind of for a checkup when Indiana was about 6 or 8 weeks old. and they see something, and it finds out it's cancer. And then we ended up being on a whole other journey that over the next 2 years, Joey would go through lots of treatment and ultimately pass away from cancer when Indiana was 2 years old. Right after Indy turned 2, Joey passed away. But again, a transformative experience for me, because up until that moment, pretty much death was away from us. My father had died years before that, and I didn't see him die. I mean, he died, and I went to a funeral, and there was this plastic person there that I walked by. And I didn't, but that's how it always is or was. But this was different. We were given the gift of hospice, and Joey died at home. We went to Indiana, and we spent the last 5 months there, and she died at home, and she truly lived at home. And again, like homesteading and home birth, dying at home and bringing death, the full circle of life home, became really clear that this is the way this is meant to be. We're supposed to be together. It's not supposed to be something I'm terrified of. It's supposed to be something we participate in it. And that was enlightening to me. At the same time that had happened, when we were about to have Indiana, Joey and I decided to take a year off the music business and just be home and enjoy this baby, and we were going to homestead. And I decided to begin writing a blog. I'd never done that before, called This Life I Live. And our idea was, we are now going to stop doing the thing that we're well known for. Life is going to get really, really boring, but I'll take pictures and make little videos, and I'll write stories. I'll capture this year of homesteading and this simplified story God's going to give us. And our phrase that we would say is, we believe God's going to give us a great story. Even though it didn't look like it was going to be one, we're going to have a baby and be home. That's the story. No, we're going to have a unique baby. And then Joey's going to get cancer, and then all these things. And then by the time, a year and a half later, millions of people had followed our story and been following our blog, because we kept sharing. As it unfolded, we kept sharing. A lot of the people that I meet here, they have been following the story. Again, that was not something that we planned on. It just worked out that somehow, and it became clear to Joey and I, that we were moderately famous, or what we would call us is rurally famous. If you live on a farm in Oklahoma, chances are you know who we are. But if you live in New York City or even in downtown Dallas, you probably don't know who we are or care. But we were famous enough so that when this time in our life happened, that Joey got sick, and people began to discover the blog, millions and millions of people began to follow our story and found encouragement. And we became aware that God had only set us up. We were only famous because he wanted to do something else that was way bigger. And again, I could see God in it. So then coming home after that, I had a 2-year-old, and I had to figure out how to begin life again at our farmhouse. And so one of the things that I did is, I have been always wanting family. My family wants family. My brothers and sisters, my sisters in particular. So during that time, we live on a 100-acre farm, or it had become 100 acres. And so how do you have family? Well, let's proximity would help. So we bought some land next door that came with a house, and we were blessed to have one of my sisters move in, and her family move in there. And then a year or two later, my other sister moved in on the other side. And so now we're a family. Not really. We are a family, like technically we're blood, but we didn't have a lot in common. And I thought, well, I want community and love and family. And so then over the next few years, we're blessed. And so we created opportunities so that our family could all work together. We'll all just work together. And that, to work together with the people you love, that will be even better. But it didn't fix anything. It actually, it made it probably harder than anything else. We've had, for the last number of years, like your event here, we've been hosting this thing called the Homestead Festival, where we have many thousands of people come to our farm. And it's been a real blessing. And and we continue growing some of our own food. And anyway, all of that to say, I was doing what I thought was the right things to try and create community, but it really wasn't happening. And I began to, all during that time, all the way through that, I had this sneaking suspicion, more than that, I knew it down in my heart that God was calling me to a deeper surrender. I knew it. I knew that there was something else. I remember when Joey was in treatment at a cancer center in Chicago in 2015, and I'm pushing Indy, 15-month-old Indy, around in a baby carriage. I'm singing "I Surrender All," and I'm just singing it for hours and hours and hours because I know I need to. And I know this problem is bigger than me. But I couldn't do it. And I went home and I just kept trucking along, kept going, kept trying to find the answers, which led me, although that story sort of intersects with Homestead heritage, because through a series of events that I don't have time to share, someone shares with Brother Howard and Abby, his daughter, that, hey, there are these country singers who are growing some of their own food on their farm way back then, and Brother Howard happens to look on, which they don't have a television, so they happen to look on the internet, and he happens to watch an episode just to see what this is of a TV show. We had our own television show by then, and he's watching us, and in this episode, we are raising our own baby chicks and turning them into fried chicken. And as he's watching, he happens to see on our kitchen table in the video a magazine that's open to an article about Homestead heritage. And he gets in his car with his family and he comes by and visits us. And we get to meet him and his family, and I don't know who he is. He knows who I am, and the way that it works is he knows that's not by accident, even if I don't know. And then later on, Mark and Linda Sherman came and visited, and they have a little girl who's 10 years old. She was 10 when Indy was born, and she has Down syndrome, and we didn't really know anybody with Down syndrome. We weren't around people. That wasn't a culture we were interested in being part of. We just wanted to be a family. And Joey started following, they're getting essential oils from them and being encouraged by the choices they were making in their daughter's life. And then years later, after Joey passed away, she always wanted to come here. I always wanted to come here. I made a trip here. Me and Indiana, we came, I think it was around 2017 or 18. I made a trip and visited, and I found this place very interesting. And these people very nice and very interesting. And then I came back again and visited, and they're more compelling, but yet I didn't really know what to make of it. And then over time, some of these people that I'd met had moved to Montana, and by then I was playing a show every summer in Montana, and I was up there, and they were starting a smaller community in Montana, and I started spending more time with them out there. And little by little, God began to work on me through these folks that were encouraging me. They were the worst evangelist in the world. They wouldn't tell me anything. They wouldn't ask it. They wouldn't tell me anything. They would just love me. And they would make me ask questions. And it was so evident. Everywhere I was looking, it was just like the fruit. There's so much joy and love and sacrifice and community and just a life I was so unfamiliar with, that as I began to seek more and more, they began to share more and more. And it became very clear to me, I knew that God was going to do a work in my life, but he's going to do it with these people. Absolutely. This is, I've looked around a long time. I know a lot of people. I've seen a lot of stuff. I ain't never seen anything like this. In my life, I ain't never seen anything like this. And I try really hard to poke a lot of holes in it. And of course, it's, nothing is perfect, but I'm telling you, there has been a lot of life here. And so this last year or two, God has continued to call me, and it became very clear that the missing point, what I want is community and family and a home and life and wholeness and a sustainable life more than, I don't just want regenerative agriculture. I want a regenerative family and a regenerative home. And I couldn't figure out how to do it. Like there's the manuals, the books, the people, I had a homesteading festival, and yet there's no conversation about any of that. And it became clear that in order to have that life, I was going to have to die. Now that was not the choice I was looking for. But when I looked around and I said, what is this? And what makes you you? And what makes this abundance possible? It was very clear to see that these folks meant their commitment. Like when I had committed to Joey, really committed, changed everything. They committed to each other, really committed to each other. They committed to God, really committed to God. And it's changed everything. And so this year, that's I've been long ready. And getting to the place, I began to say, God, what is it that I'm withholding from you? Show me what I need to do. And he began to reveal to me thing after thing after thing after thing. And I became very clear that I was following him in my comfort zone. I mean, it wasn't a few things, it was everything. And I began, for the first time, I stopped writing songs in 10 years, and the first song that God gave me, the first one, I thought, I'm going to write songs for God now. The very first song he gives me says, I'll do anything, Lord, that you want me to. And I thought, oh good, I'm going to write a good worship song for him. As long as it ain't something I don't want to do. I'll give anything, Lord, you want me to give, as long as I don't have to change the way I live. Lord, I'll give anything, 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 but everything to you. And it became, now that's an unusual worship song. I am not making the right choices, but I'm telling you, there's a lot of me out there. And a lot of people that are in the same spot as I have been. And I began to say, anything, everything. And even that, my friends in Montana and here began to help me work through that. And I got baptized this past summer in Montana, and I got remarried. Rebecca and I got married 4 days later in Montana. And it was so great. It was so great. I couldn't even imagine. It was so great. And it's been so great. And I thought, I want to be part of this. You guys, Vlad, where are you going? Like, how do you get to be part of this? So I have done the things. And here's what they said. I can't wait to see what God does. It's like, but what? Oh, I can't wait to see what he does. Yeah, but you got a rule book? You got some guide or something? Do I have to dress a particular way? Can't wait to see what he does. And I get in my car and I come home from Montana. And within 2 or 3 weeks, all my family and all the friends and everybody who works for us all scatter. Nobody's working for us anymore. Through a series of, there's probably lots of things. But, ironically, it happens to be around the same time that my older daughters release a big, it's a whole thing about how I've joined a cult. And so that word sends people running. So my family scattered. Well, here's the thing is like all through the years in my effort to create community and home and family, I had created something that wasn't good for any of us, not for them. They weren't doing anything wrong. It just wasn't good. And I thought, Lord, I'll never be able to unravel this. And in a moment, he unraveled all of it. And he gave us the opportunity to, let's just be family together. And he's given, so since then, I've mostly just been moving cows and chickens and pigs and lots of stuff at home. And God has kind of revamped our life. And it's created some difficulties, but it doesn't feel like bad difficulties. It feels like what he's doing is setting us up for a life that he has in store for us. And I'm so excited, I can't even stand it. I mean, just honestly, and everybody, I come up to people and it's like, I'm praying for you. Are you okay? And I find myself going, oh, they must have read something on the internet. Maybe something new has happened, because I mostly want to go, I'm doing so good. But the internet might be a little bit different. But I am so encouraged, and I'm encouraged by the opportunity God's given me in my life about being here and being able to already see the fruit. I told someone yesterday, the bad things have been really, really good. Really good. And I can't wait to see what he's going to do. And one of the things that I found in the life that I've begun to experience is a wholeness. Back to the sort of Chip and Joanna Gaines home makeover. It became clear that a lot of what I've always been looking for, they've had 50 years to find. And they've gone through a lot of trial and error, and there are a lot of things like I've realized that I actually, in order to have a home, you have to reimagine home. It's a little bit different, and so for me, it became very clear that home shouldn't just be a place that I'm stopping in and I'm working at and I'm just spending the night in. Home should be the place where our children are born. It should be maybe the place where our kids learn and grow. It should be the place where our parents spend their last years and maybe one day die. It should be the place where we live and work and dream together with other people. The place where we experience our entertainment or our downtime and our play together with neighbors, where we actually live, where we actually spend our time, where we shop and we spend our money. And that's what these folks are doing, and that's what the folks in some of these other communities, and it's very exciting, and it's very, very timely. I think there's a lot of us that are looking for something more than more. I've read this a while back, and I really love this. Dietrich Bonhoeffer said, when Christ calls a man, he bids him come and die. And when I got baptized as a Catholic when I was a baby, and then a couple of other times, I didn't know that. I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to die. I was afraid that maybe there wouldn't be any life after that, or no fun, or no real life. And instead, I've realized that in that dying, that daily dying, a new life has been waiting. And it has just been so exciting for me. Everybody's been asking where Rebecca is in Indiana. They're back home, moving cows and stuff so that I can come here and be with you all today. I hope they're going to come with me next year to be part of this. Rebecca has been Indiana's teacher for the last 5 or 6 years. And now that we're married, she's homeschooling Indiana at home, and she's never had children, and so she's recently got to become a mama. Indiana is 10 years old now, and she's never had a mama, not in her life, and she has all of a sudden got to have a mama, and she's beside herself. And it's been a really, really beautiful thing. And even the difficulties, even the things that are unsettled, God is going to settle those things. And I'm very, very encouraged. So anyway, I just wanted to share a little bit of my journey, how I got here, how I see, I came from a little farther outside than some folks. Some people come from a different place than me, but that's how I got here. That's why I'm excited that I'm here. And that's also why I'm excited that you are here. Thank you for having me here today.